Doctors are hiding this from you, not because they are evil, not because they don't care about your health, but because the medical system was built on drugs, on prescriptions, on appointments. And when nature offers something that works, something found at your local market, your grocery store, your backyard, the knowledge simply disappears. Today, you are going to discover what researchers around the world have known for decades, what entire populations have used for centuries, and what the pharmaceutical industry would prefer you never find out. Red onion contains compounds that act directly on blood glucose levels, and science proves it. But before anything else, let me be completely honest with you from the start, because you deserve respect and you deserve the full truth. Nothing here replaces a doctor. Nothing here is a miracle. Nothing here is a cure. What you are going to learn today is how to use a powerful food intelligently, in moderation, as an ally on your path to a healthier life. And if you have diabetes, if you use insulin, if you have any diagnosed health condition, you need to talk to your specialist doctor before making any changes to your diet. That is not fine print. That is respect for your life. Now, with that said, let us go deep into this subject that is changing the way the world looks at functional foods. Why red onion and not regular onion? That is the first question you need to answer in your mind. After all, an onion is an onion, right? Wrong. Red onion contains significantly higher concentrations of a compound called quercetin, a flavonoid with antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties documented in hundreds of scientific studies. It also contains anthocyanins, the pigments that give it that intense purple color, which are being studied for their ability to influence glucose metabolism. Think about it. Why has traditional Chinese medicine used onion for over 4,000 years? Why do Mediterranean peoples historically show lower rates of type 2 diabetes? Why do African populations that maintain diets rich in red onion display metabolic patterns that intrigue modern researchers? Coincidence? The data says no. A study published in the Journal of Nutrition found that regular consumption of quercetin, present in abundance in red onion, is associated with improvements in insulin sensitivity. Another study, conducted with volunteers who had type 2 diabetes, showed that onion extract produced measurable reductions in fasting glucose levels. And a third, published in the scientific journal Evidence-Based Complementary and Alternative Medicine, showed that sulfur compounds from onion stimulate insulin production by the pancreas. But wait, you have probably heard about dozens of superfoods that promise the world and deliver nothing. So, how do you know red onion is different? How do you know this is not just another trend dressed up in science? The answer lies in the mechanism. Do you know the difference between a study that says people who eat X have less Y and a study that explains why that happens? Red onion is not a case of vague correlation. Researchers have identified specific mechanisms. First, quercetin inhibits an enzyme called alpha-glucosidase, which is responsible for breaking complex carbohydrates into simple sugars in the intestine. When this enzyme works more slowly, sugar enters the bloodstream more gradually, without that sharp spike that harms people with insulin resistance so much. This is exactly the same mechanism as some medications used for glycemic control, but without the gastrointestinal side effects those drugs frequently cause. Second mechanism. The sulfur compounds in onion, especially allicin and its derivatives, directly stimulate the beta cells of the pancreas, which are responsible for producing insulin. In people with type 2 diabetes, these cells are often overloaded or partially compromised. Natural compounds that gently stimulate them, without the stress that high doses of medications cause, represent a complementary approach of enormous interest. Third mechanism. The anthocyanins in red onion reduce low-grade systemic inflammation, and that matters far more than it seems. Insulin resistance, which is the root of most cases of type 2 diabetes, is fundamentally an inflammatory process. When you reduce inflammation, you often improve insulin sensitivity. It is a chain of effects that starts with a purple pigment and ends with cells that respond better to the hormone that controls your blood sugar. Now comes the most common objection. The person watching me right now is thinking, but if this works, why has my doctor never told me? Why doesn't the endocrinology clinic have a poster about red onion? That is a fair question, and the answer is uncomfortable, but it needs to be said. Conventional medicine, in all its greatness, was built on the pharmacological model. This means that for a treatment to be widely recommended, it needs to go through Phase 3 clinical trials, regulatory approval, and an entire chain of validation that costs hundreds of millions of dollars. Who funds these studies? In large part, pharmaceutical companies. And a pharmaceutical company cannot patent an onion. It cannot profit from a food that anyone can buy for a few dollars at the market. So the economic incentive to fund large clinical studies on red onion simply does not exist in the same way it does for a new synthetic molecule. This does not mean doctors are villains. The vast majority of doctors are trained within this system. Learn what the system teaches and prescribe what the system validates. When a patient comes in with insulin resistance, the protocol says, lifestyle change, carbohydrate reduction, physical exercise, and if necessary, metformin. Red onion is not in the protocol. Not because it does not work, but because it has never had the investment needed to enter the protocol. And here, again, I will reinforce, this is not an argument for you to abandon your doctor. It is an argument for you to understand that science is larger than the consultation room, and that you can be an active participant in your own health, using functional foods as intelligent allies, always in dialogue with the professionals who follow your case. Let us now talk about how to use red onion in a practical, efficient, and above all, moderate way. Because yes, moderation matters. Red onion is a food, not a medicine. And like any food, consumed in excess, it can cause gastrointestinal discomfort, gas, and in people with certain conditions, it can interact with anticoagulants due to its effect on platelet aggregation. We are not talking about poison, we are talking about common sense. 2 to 4 servings of red onion per day, naturally incorporated into meals, is what most observational studies use as a reference. It is not a glass of onion juice every morning on an empty stomach. It is not a giant bowl of raw onion. It is a food you incorporate intelligently, consistently, and enjoyably into your routine. The way you prepare it makes an enormous difference. Raw red onion preserves the highest concentration of quercetin and active sulfur compounds. When you cook onion at high temperatures for a long time, some of these compounds degrade. And this does not mean cooked onion has no value. It simply means the raw or lightly processed version delivers more of the compounds we are discussing. Some intelligent ways to incorporate it. Thin slices of raw red onion in salads, with a drizzle of extra virgin olive oil and apple cider vinegar. The vinegar, by the way, has its own studies on glycemic control, which makes this combination doubly interesting. Red onion quickly pickled in lemon juice and salt. This gentle maceration process does not destroy the active compounds and also makes the onion more palatable for those who do not enjoy the intense flavor. A light sauté of red onion with olive oil and garlic. Moderate heat for just a few minutes does not eliminate all the benefits and still creates a flavorful base for any meal. Diced red onion over scrambled eggs, beans, or brown rice. Small amounts added at the end of cooking, taking advantage of residual heat without destroying the compounds. And here is a point that many natural health scripts ignore. Consistency beats intensity. A large amount of red onion once a week will not do what a moderate amount every day does. Just like physical exercise, the benefits of functional foods are built over time, through habit, through regularity. Let us now destroy the second major objection that comes up when the topic is functional nutrition and blood glucose. The objection goes like this: my diabetes is genetic. Diet is not going to change anything. This belief is understandable. After all, if your parents had diabetes, if your grandparents had it, it seems inevitable. But modern genetics teaches us something fascinating. Genes carry a predisposition, not a destiny. Epigenetics, which is the study of how environment and lifestyle influence gene expression, has shown that you can carry the genes associated with type 2 diabetes and never develop it, depending on the choices you make throughout your life. And you can have a moderate predisposition and develop the disease earlier if poor diet, sedentary habits, and stress combine in an unfavorable way. The metabolic environment you create inside your body, the level of inflammation, the quality of your gut microbiome, the sensitivity of your cells to insulin, all of this is shaped by what you eat, how much you move, how you sleep, and how you manage stress. Genes give you the piano. You are the one who plays it. And red onion, in this context, is one of the most accessible modulation tools you have. Not because it is magic, but because it acts on multiple mechanisms simultaneously, gently, continuously, in a way that is compatible with real, everyday life. Third objection: medication controls my blood sugar. Why bother changing my diet? This is perhaps the most important one to answer carefully. Medications for glycemic control save lives. Insulin is one of the greatest medical discoveries of the 20th century. Metformin is considered by many experts one of the safest and most effective drugs ever created. Nothing you will learn here should make you stop your medication without medical guidance. That could be dangerous. That could be fatal in more serious cases. What research on functional foods suggests is something different, that diet and medication are not opposites. They are allies. People who improve their diet often manage, under medical supervision, to reduce medication doses. People who add functional foods to their routines often show improvements in their tests that pleasantly surprise their doctors. The goal is not to replace the drug with the onion. The goal is to create a metabolic environment so favorable that the body itself works better, with or without medication. And here is the point nobody talks about. Medication acts on the symptom, on the elevated glucose level. Functional foods, when well chosen and consistently used, act on the underlying causes: inflammation, insulin sensitivity, pancreatic function, carbohydrate absorption. These are complementary approaches, not competing ones. Fourth objection: I have already tried dieting. It does not work for me. How many times have you heard that? How many times have you said it yourself? The question is not whether diet works. The question is which diet, with what consistency, with what support, for how long. Most diets fail because they are too restrictive, because they demand the abandonment of pleasure, because they treat food as the enemy. The functional food approach is different. Instead of taking away, you add. Instead of forbidding, you enrich. Instead of creating deprivation, you create an abundance of nutrition. Adding red onion to your diet does not require you to stop eating something you love. It does not require obsessive calorie counting. It does not require complicated recipes. It is an inexpensive food, available at any market, versatile in the kitchen, and with a nutritional profile that goes far beyond glycemic control. Red onion is also rich in chromium, a mineral essential for glucose metabolism that a large portion of the population does not consume in sufficient quantities. It contains prebiotic fibers that feed beneficial bacteria in the gut, and the connection between a healthy microbiome and glycemic control is one of the most exciting areas of current research. It has vitamin C, organosulfur compounds with documented cardiovascular properties, and systemic anti-inflammatory activity. It is a food, a real, complete food that humanity has been eating for millennia. And we are only now, with the tools of modern science, beginning to understand in depth why our ancestors were right. Let us talk about something few people address. The timing of consumption matters. Consuming red onion with main meals, especially those richer in carbohydrates, appears to be more effective than consuming it on an empty stomach or away from meals. The logic is simple. The alpha-glucosidase inhibitors present in onion need to be present in the intestine at the moment the carbohydrates arrive, so they can slow their absorption down. This reinforces the approach of incorporating red onion as part of meals, not as a separate supplement. Another practical consideration: combining it with healthy fats, such as olive oil, improves the absorption of fat-soluble compounds present in onion. Quercetin has greater bioavailability when consumed with some source of fat. One more argument for the classic salad with olive oil combination that appears in virtually every Mediterranean diet. Now, a warning we need to give with great clarity. If you are pregnant, if you have kidney problems, if you use anticoagulants such as warfarin, if you have irritable bowel syndrome with FODMAP sensitivity, red onion may not be the best choice for you, or may need adjustments in quantity and preparation method. Every body is different. Every health condition has its particularities. This further reinforces the importance of talking to a doctor, preferably an endocrinologist or a nutrition specialist, someone who can look at your specific case and guide you based on your tests, your clinical history, your context. What we want you to take from this video is not a magic recipe, it is awareness. The awareness that the foods you put on your plate have real, measurable impact on your biochemistry. The awareness that nature has developed, over millions of years, compounds of a complexity that we still cannot fully reproduce in a laboratory. And the awareness that you have the power, within an intelligent and monitored context, to use these compounds in your favor. Red onion will not cure diabetes. That needs to be clear. But it can be an important piece in a mosaic of choices that, together, make a real difference in your test results, your weight, your energy levels, your quality of life. And that mosaic includes regular physical exercise, because muscle in motion consumes glucose independently of insulin and is one of the best natural remedies for insulin resistance that exists. It includes quality sleep, because sleep deprivation increases cortisol and insulin resistance in ways no diet can compensate for. It includes stress management, because chronic stress raises blood sugar in direct and indirect ways. It includes adequate hydration, because water is an essential part of virtually every metabolic process. Red onion is one piece of that mosaic, an accessible, delicious piece with growing scientific support that can become a part of your routine starting today with zero additional cost for most people. If this video found you, it is because you are seeking information. You want to better understand your body. You are willing to go beyond what the system delivers as standard. That alone is extraordinary. That alone puts you ahead of many people who passively wait for someone else to solve their health for them. Use this knowledge wisely. Use it in moderation. Use it as an ally, not as a substitute. Keep going to the doctor. Keep doing your tests. Keep taking the medication that was prescribed for you. And add red onion and other functional foods as one more layer of care for your body. Because in the end, your health is yours. Not the systems, not the pharmacies, not the insurance plans. Yours. And when you take that ownership, when you begin to understand what each food does inside you, when you begin to make informed and conscious choices, you become an active participant in your own story. And stories of people who reversed prediabetes with lifestyle changes exist by the thousands. Stories of people who reduced medication under medical guidance because they radically improved their habits exist in doctors' offices around the world. Stories of people who simply felt better, with more energy, with better test results, with more drive to live, exist in infinite numbers. Your story could be next. But it starts with information. It starts with awareness. It starts with the kind of curiosity that brought you here today. Now you know what red onion does. You know why it does it. You know how to use it intelligently and in moderation. And you know that this is not an alternative to your doctor. It is a complement, an ally, one more tool in your hands. Use it well. use it consistently, and share this knowledge with the people you love, because the health that nature offers should never be hidden from anyone.